Jared Kushner, who was one of the key architects behind that UAE-Israel deal. How did the deal come about? Are other Arab states going to follow, like the Saudis?
So first of all, yesterday was really a historic day, and it was an honor for me to be a part of such a momentous breakthrough. It was the first peace agreement that we were able to see in the last 26 years. The last agreement we saw in the Middle East was between Israel and Jordan in 1994, and we've had a lot of problems in the Middle East since then. So President Trump's leadership, he outlined the vision for what he wanted to see changed in the region between 2017 and today, and the hard work over the last 3.5 years helped bring this forward. So I do think that this will change the paradigm. People in the Middle East were very resigned to the fact that things were not going to change. Everyone was very able to tell you what the problems were, but nobody was able to find solutions. What President Trump came in is he brought a fresh approach. He reestablished the alliances and strengthened the alliances with Israel and UAE and Egypt and Jordan and everyone throughout the region. And by taking a very serious, no-nonsense approach to deal-making, President Trump was able to make a breakthrough that nobody's been able to make before.
UAE officials have said their phones essentially have been ringing off the hook in terms of back-channel talks and whatnot. I'm curious, have you spoken with MBS since this has been announced? And do you think, and I know you're not going to broadcast here, but do you think other Arab states could follow suit here like the Saudis?
Do you want me not to break news on your show?
I would love if you broke news.
No. So one of the great things we did yesterday is we were able to keep it a secret, and the president's tweet is really what broke the news, and people were surprised that a deal of this historic magnitude was able to stay quiet. We've built a lot of trust with people in the region. We have tons of discussions with people ongoing. We've had them for the last years, and people are very, very positive. I think the press in the region has been quite positive. People are seeing that the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed's step really was a historic step forward. He's always been a leader in that region, and a lot of people want to come very close behind him because they realize that by taking this step, it will make the region more secure, more economically prosperous, and it also will help the Palestinian people in the long run.
Have they agreed to purchase new military weapons from the United States, like drones, for example? Or can you give us anything about the purchases that they will make from the U.S.?
Yeah, so we have an ongoing relationship with the United Arab Emirates as well as with Israel for a long time. They're one of our closest military partners, and so there's always ongoing discussions about how we can strengthen the relationship, create more interoperability between our forces. And obviously there's the common enemy, not common enemy, but you have Iran right now who's been threatening UAE, been threatening Israel, been threatening America, and then funding a lot of the proxies fighters that are causing instability throughout the region. So security's never been more important, and we're always in discussions with our allies about how we can continue to advance and make progress to make sure that the region can become safer.
The last time we spoke, it was following the announcement of the Middle East peace proposal from this administration, and one of the items outlined in there is the two-state solution. Prime Minister Netanyahu says that he will not have annexation in the Western Bank for the time being. How crucial of a will this deal unravel should Prime Minister Netanyahu ultimately, in the longer term, pursue annexation?
Look, Prime Minister Netanyahu is a visionary leader. He's very tough. He understands what's important to the Israeli people, but most importantly, he understands what's critical to Israel's security and Israel's economy. And so right now, he believes that it's much more important to strengthen the relationship with United Arab Emirates and other regional Arab countries to figure out how we can create that cross-pollination between the populations. And by doing that, I think that you'll see that'll make Israeli safer. So when he gives his word on something, I take his word.
The other week, I was speaking with Jason Greenblatt, a previous administration official here at the White House, and he noted that there had been some optimism, some hope in terms of how Palestinians and the Israelis were working together on COVID-19. Not all the way, but some areas, and especially how the economic situation because of the pandemic and the medical situation in both Israel and Palestine has forced them to relook at things regarding water, cybersecurity, and technology. However, the Palestinians really denounced this deal. At what point do you have to put additional pressure on Palestine in order to get them to broker that Israel-Palestine deal?
Yeah, we don't want to pressure the Palestinian people. And look, I think a lot's changed over 25 years, right? People have seen that a lot of the approaches haven't worked. People want better lives for their children. They want to live in peace. They want security. They want economic opportunity. I think that that's just the natural evolution. People are tired of conflict, tired of war. The Middle East has had problem after problem after problem. President Trump's come in. He's recognized the realities on the ground, and he's tried to sort them out as we go. And so with regards to the Palestinians, what we did is we laid out a good vision for what can happen. We got Israel to agree to a Palestinian state. We got Israel to agree to potential borders through a map that we published. And we have we created a conference in Bahrain where the international community came together and endorsed our plan to provide $50 billion over 10 years to double their GDP, create 1 million new jobs, and help them have a better quality of life. So when you see denouncements and disagreements, I think that the people, the Israeli people and the Palestinian people, are much closer together than perhaps where the Palestinian leadership is. And so the hope is that over time the Palestinian leadership will see that they have so much more to gain for their people and for their legacies by engaging and resolving these long-standing conflicts than by putting out the same tired statements that, quite frankly, haven't brought progress for their people.
I've got two more questions for you. One as it relates to Iran. From a geopolitical sense, you know this, Democrats have been campaigning saying that they would rejoin the Iran deal. Senator Kamala Harris, who of course was named as the running mate to the presumptive nominee, has said she wants to rejoin the Iran deal. Democrats say that coalition building is a contrast to the foreign policy strategy of this administration. How important of a role did Iran play in these negotiations, and what's your response to those who argue that the Iran deal would restore some allies?
Look, I think that Americans are smart, and one of the reasons why people elected Donald Trump is because Americans were tired of their politicians making stupid deals. The Iran deal was one of the worst deals that any American diplomat had ever made. It put Iran on a glide path to a nuclear weapon. It gave them $150 billion, which they used directly to fund terror. And, you know, it's not like the next day they said, okay, America's great, let's work with them. The day they signed the agreement, they were in the streets chanting death to America, death to Israel. So I'm not sure what that agreement accomplished other than antagonizing everyone all over the world. So it was a terrible deal. America made terrible trade deals. President Trump has changed all of that. The American people want to see our troops brought home. President Trump has tried to end the war in Afghanistan. He's already reduced our troops there significantly. He wants to rebuild American cities. He doesn't want to rebuild other nations. And I think that President Trump, as you've seen through this, a lot of the Democrats have attacked him for his diplomacy. He's going to cause wars. He's isolating. Well, that hasn't been the case. He was able to create a historic peace agreement yesterday that the previous administration and the administration before were not able to accomplish. So I think that with President Trump, you have to separate the media and you have to separate the political jostling from what he really does. And what he does is he brings a common sense approach. He's not afraid to say what he thinks, and he brings results, and that's what the American people want. So I would just say this, rejoining the Iran deal on the old terms would be absolutely catastrophic for America. It would be catastrophic for Israel. It would be catastrophic for the whole region. Because again, what the vision of what Iran wants to see is not consistent with what's in America's interests.
Final question, this Kodak deal temporarily on pause. Are you optimistic that this will get back through, or is it just going to end up in a regulatory quagmire?
Yeah, I'm not up to speed on the latest with it, but I know that, that they put it on pause, and that was the right decision.